Good morning, everybody, to the Kurzfilm Industry Lab and our presentation. The format is Swiss industry information, this time not exactly only Swiss, but with guests from Sweden and Germany. We wanted to originally do a comparison of different funding systems. And we found this study of Filminstitute, which is a regional funding institution in Sweden, who takes care of, or who is dealing with funding, the instrument of funding in general, and which collected a lot of information, not only for short film, but also short film is included. It is more about the role of funding itself, and yes. So I'm very, very happy to welcome our guests, and I'm very happy. Teresa Vena is the moderator for this evening. She's the new editor-in-chief for Cinébulletin, and the other guests will be introduced by her. But I want to thank Luukkonen very much for giving us a small summary of this very broad study. And then I'm looking forward to a vivid discussion from different perspectives. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Welcome also from my side. Everyone will introduce herself then after the presentation of Jenny. Yeah, please then, I would say, go ahead.
Hello. No. Hi. So my name is Jenny Luukkonen, and I work as a co-production executive for short film and documentary at the Swedish Regional Film Fund Filminstitute, as well as run several of our talent schemes. I'm not going to talk so much about Filminstitute. I just put that slide up for you to glance at. My colleagues at Väst Analysis have published 2 big reports on the future of public funding, film funding, and as Gabriella said, I've been asked to give you a short introduction to these reports as a little food for thought before we dive into the panel discussion. So I have extracted some comments and questions that maybe can be used as a starting point or for you to think about when you leave. I just wanted to mention that the first report, which is the red one, is based on over 700 interviews with professionals within the film and audiovisual industry in Europe, from producers to distributors to funders to creators. And the second one, the purple one, is only based on 300 interviews. And besides these 2 reports, as you can see, we've published around 28 sub-reports and appendixes that you can find on our webpage. So the film industry, or the audiovisual industry, depending on where you are in Europe, has gone through some big changes the past 5 years. Everything seems to be changing all at once, to quote this year's Nostradamus report that I also can recommend that you read. The first report was initiated before the pandemic, but was finished in spring 2022. And as we know, the pandemic accelerated this shift in the industry and the audience's behavior, especially when it came to where we are watching things and what we are watching. And the fact that series became so totally dominant during the pandemic. When we started writing the first report, Public Film Fundings at a Crossroads, the big issues then sort of were for like the lack of production capacity in Europe due to the global and local streamers that entered the market and started commissioning mainly series for both the European and the global market. It was simply raining money over producers and creators that could actually feed these streaming monsters with content. And there wasn't really enough people to make what was being commissioned, and this was a huge problem. Another issue was the fear that public funding would be less attractive for creators and the industry in general, since the streamer was a one-stop shop, and few felt that their artistic freedom was restricted by these commercial players. So why want to work with public funders that are slow and bureaucratic and far removed from the reality of production? Another issue that was heavily debated was, should public money be able to go to projects that are already funded by streamers? Is it even possible? Is it necessary? Is it even wanted by the creators or the streamers or by us who fund projects? And it seemed like nobody had a clear answer, and this seemed like a bit of a gray zone. And another issue that was heavily debated was, the thing about incentives and non-selective funding. Should we put money into the audiovisual industry for economic reasons, or should it be more based on artistic and cultural values? And what effect does these incentives and non-selective fundings have on the industry? And this is all in an era where a lot of countries are seeing a declining consumption of their own domestic films and series, especially when it comes to the cinema. The audience is simply choosing blockbusters or to stay at home with the streamers. And this worries the public film agencies. Why fund films and series that few are interested in watching? And how do you justify that with public money? And if other players are putting a lot of money into the making of films and series, what is really the need for public funding? We released the second report, All That Is Solid Melts Into Air, in August this year. And in just more than a year, a lot of things had already happened. There's now a war in Europe that has created, amongst other things, an economic and cost of living crisis, as well as an inflation. And this has a huge impact on the audiovisual industry. Audiences might need to prioritize other things than going to the cinema or subscribe to several VODs. And the cost of production has gone up faster than the funds available for it. And the global streamers have now also shifted their tactics. Their main goal is now to increase revenue and not to be the one making the most originals. You could say that the money rain has sort of stopped raining on the industry. And then, of course, we have AI rocking the boat, where some people see opportunity, other people see a threat. The writer's strike in Hollywood is a good example of that, as well as the actor's strike that just came to a close yesterday. And how will this affect our industry? And right now we don't know how, but we know that it will. Most countries are seeing big political polarizations, and political parties on the far right are gaining more power. And how will this affect public funding for art and the audiovisual sector in the near future? And lastly, once again, what about incentives and non-selective funding? This is still a very hot topic, and now people are so radical as to suggest that maybe we should scrap the whole thing. If there was a need for public film agencies to sharpen their arguments for why public film funding is necessary in 2022. It's even bigger now. And the second report circles around these existential questions regarding the purpose of public film funding. And basically it encouraged everyone to sort of think about it, so we can come and talk to you and question you about it, and put it in our third and final report. We're in a short film festival, and as you can tell, the report is looking at the big picture, and the short film isn't really included in that, but there are some things that they make me think about when they come to the effect of short film and the people who make it and work with it. Most respondents in the report think that talent development should be a priority for public film agencies, and this is great news for short film makers, because short film funding is, if not mostly, then partly considered talent development, both on a national level and regional level. So, I mean, short film should continue to be something that public film agencies put their money in, even in the future. So that is sort of the good news. Another thing is that the content boom that we saw a couple of years ago created a lot of opportunity for new talent, since there was a lack of creators to make all these film and series that was being demanded. Instead of making a lot of short film, a lot of writers and directors and producers went straight to bigger projects. Now that the economic pendulum has swung the other way, the situation for new talent might be a bit different, and also it might even be worse than it was before the content boom. Because today it sort of seems like everybody wants a safe bet. And if you're fresh out of school or you just made a short film or two, you're not really considered a safe bet. So maybe more filmmakers will want to make short films again. And if so, maybe public film agencies are in a position to make the more risky choices than the commercial players, or are we? That could be an interesting thing to discuss. Another thing is that short film is never and will probably not be a commercially viable product. Even though billions of us watch short film and videos, reels on our phones every day, we don't seem to want to do it to the extent that someone can make a lot of money from it. This might it might sound like a sad thing, but at least it makes it makes us a bit less affected by the storms that are blowing through the industry right now. The money never really rained on us anyway, so it doesn't affect us as much when it's sort of been ceasing. But I do think it's important that we keep an eye on what the public film agencies and our politicians are planning to prioritize in the future, and how much of these priorities will be based on economic values and how much of it will be based on cultural values, and where do we think short film stands in this. Both reports also briefly questions if the classic short film is a good way to develop talent. Some people think, isn't it a bit obsolete? What about TikTok and YouTube? And I mean, my personal thought on that is, I mean, short film as a format has an incredible infrastructure in most parts of Europe, from funding it to distributing it. I think it's amazing what we've been able to build. And I mean, to put money into short film will always be a good way to develop creators in terms of having them test out ideas, enhance their craft, and create a relationship with both audience and future collaborators. So, and at the same time, there's a huge difference between there's a huge difference between what motivates someone that makes short film and someone that makes content for YouTube. So I'm not even sure that we actually should compare the two in the way that some respondents do in the report. So, I mean, finally, in the report, public film agencies are sort of encouraged to think about not only their general purpose, but also the purpose of their talent development. Some think that we focus too much on auteurs and don't develop the kind of talent that the industry is interested in working with. And this makes me think that public film agencies might need to involve the industry more in talent development in the future. I also get the sense from reading the report, working with it, that it doesn't seem like all the respondents know how we work and what we do. And maybe that is a sign that we need to be more clear about our aims and focus. And broader types of collaborations could lead us to think more outside the box and maybe reaching new types of filmmakers that results in a bigger diversity among the creators that we support. And we might also find on the other formats than short film to encourage development in talent. But I don't think that public film funders will move away from short film as a format anytime soon. So you will probably be okay for now, is my main conclusion.
Thank you, Jenny, for this presentation and interesting thoughts. I think this is exactly what we want to try to find out what the challenges for funding short films with the changings in the industry will be. But also, most important, I guess we'll focus on how short films is really the element for talent development, or is it? Yeah. But first, I would like to our guests to introduce themselves. And Jutta, could you start?
It's on.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jutta Wille. I'm Managing Director of the German Short Film Association. The structure in Germany is completely different to what it is in Scandinavia, for example. So we promote German short films in Germany and abroad on film markets, and so we select about 100 films from more than 2,500 per year are produced in Germany and try to promote them. We do not have the rights of the films, and we do not do festival distribution. That it's too much. We do not have enough manpower for that. The members of our association are not the filmmakers themselves. Our members are institutions like film festivals, film schools, distribution, short film distributors, and cinema associations. So institutions involved in short film. And the second big part we are doing is lobbying for short films to better the conditions in all fields like production, development, distribution. Yeah, that's shortly my introduction.
Yeah, my name is Jing. I work at the Swedish Filminstitute, so we're the national funder in Sweden. Swedish Filminstitute does everything from archive to digitization to education, but my department does film support in all different kinds. We have in Sweden and the other Nordic countries that I can also talk a little bit about, we have a consultant system, which means we have one person for short films and new formats that will that can give money to development and also to production of short films. We have 2 for documentary, 2 for feature films, and also 1 children's films commissioner. So it's people that we then, every 4th year, there will be a new person. But in our countries, it's one person who will read and think about the artistic and other qualities of a film. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Patrizia Pesko. I'm head of the film funding at the Federal Office of Culture, the national level in Switzerland. We support short films in the big commissions. So there is one commission for fiction, one for documentary, one for animation. And they evaluate also the short film projects. And we have also automatic funding and cash rebate incentives. Cash rebate is not for short films, but the automatic funding can be reinvested also in short films.
Jenny, I think we didn't know so much about you.
Oh, I can just say, well, so I work for one of the film funds in Sweden and in most of the Nordic countries. It's sort of the same on the national level. It's one person that read in my case, I read all the applications for short film, short formats, and documentary, and I have colleagues that do international co-productions, international features, in national Swedish or Swedish features and drama series. So we read and present it and make decisions. And we have, I think I mentioned around 900 and, what did I say? 85? I can't remember. To take like kronas into euros is not my strong side, but around 8.5 million euros is what we have roughly, and of that around 200,000 euros for short.
Yeah, well, let's start with that. Maybe also you told us before, how much do you have on your side for short film?
About in the short, the short film commissioner herself, and that's only for fiction, and the new formats has around 700,000. But I think with what they have in the other rooms with documentaries and children's films, I think we're around €1 million for short format content.
And could you also tell us a little bit more about? You told us there is like an industry already in
yes, we had a chat yesterday talking about, like Jenny says, is short film only talent development so that people can finally do their feature films and be done with this whole short thing? And I think because we in Sweden have financing to actually do short films, so that maybe you can't make a big living out of it, but we actually have production companies that primarily will do short films or will have short film as an important thing to do. Maybe you also do commercials or features, but we have both companies and also filmmakers that will come back to the short format even if they've been away and done other stuff in the meantime. So for us, it's definitely not just talent development. We have filmmakers that will say, my next idea has a format that fits this format. I mean, this is not a feature film, this is a poem, or this is a joke, or this is a completely different thing. Yeah.
First, Jutta, how is it with the finance?
So we do not fund. We, as I told you, and in Germany for the federal level, the state level, there is really less money for short films. It's 500,000. And we are a big country, and another problem is that for one project you can get not more than 30,000, and they do not accept minority productions. So that's a huge problem for, even if the producer finds someone, a co-producer from a foreign, from other country and would like to give more money, then you cannot get the state money. So that's really stupid. And a few years ago, I think 2 years ago, we collected some numbers to argue with the politicians, and we find out if you to compare all the fundings in per 1,000 inhabitants in Germany, there are, from the state level, they are given €6 for short films. In Slovakia, it's about 25. In Sweden, it was 150. And in Iceland, nearly 800. So yeah, actually in Germany, short film is really, it's it's a tiny thing someone has heard about, but nobody really takes care. And even the regional funder, they mostly say it's talent, but there are so many, even internationally well-known artists, especially from animation and experimental sector. They are just in short films, but they do not have the possibility to live from. So they are all doing different things, and then sometimes, like a hobby, the short films. Yeah.
Well, Switzerland is not as big as the country, but how much do we have?
Yeah, we don't have a specific budget for short films, but it's in the bigger budget by gender, so fiction, documentary, animation, and the commission spend almost 2 million francs per year in short films. We have about 150 applications per year, and we can support 1/3, so 40, 50 short films per year.
And what would you say, how much of these short films come from young or new talents?
It's mostly talent development. It happens that an established filmmaker wants to make an essay or a short film, it happens, but they're mostly young filmmakers after the first film after the school.
And for project that, for first feature or so, is it necessary to show that you did short films?
It's not necessary, but it helps. There are young filmmakers, they will make 1-2 short films normally before they get to the first long feature. It it helps also to convince the producers about your talent.
How is it in your case? Is it necessary to show?
You have to make feature films. You have to have made at least 2 short films or some other artistic work that you can show, so that you can show that you have the ability to direct something. But again, that's the whole talent development thing. I think what we also do in Sweden to try and find the new talent is we do different kinds of schemes. We have one that we work together with you in the regions, Talent in the Whole Country, I think we called it, where we gave money to the regional film fund so they could also find this new talent that we in the capital might not find out there. So we can hear new voices, more diverse voices, instead of the middle-class white people living in the Stockholm suburbs. So we have these kind of things. And also in a short film commissioner, together with SVT, our public broadcaster, from time to time tries to have a theme or interesting. The new one is called Neon, but I can't.
No, the new one is called Echoes.
Echoes. Neon was the last one. Echoes. Yeah, and they want to do something based on music, not music videos, but if you have an idea where music makes a big part of it. We've had when Ingmar Bergman turned 100. We funded 6 short films that were based on ideas about him. There was a music video, there was a story about him and something completely different. So they tried to again, short film not only being talent development, but also being developing or looking at the genre and how can we play with it instead of just making little featurettes.
But talent development means also not only, of course, from the point of view of the person who directs or writes, but also on the production level. Maybe to produce a short film is also a way to start in your own production company, or what would you say?
So, in Germany, because of that really bad conditions, there is no production company specialized on short films. There are maybe 1 or 2, but they are not just doing short films because you can't make your living from that. And when we have our selection, we do not care about, but after the selection, I always count, so to have statistics, and half of the films are more or less student films and the other half are independent films. And for that, from the independent, I would say half of them are producing their own films themselves, so as a director and producer, and there some other are some young producers, but it's not to install a short film production company. It's you can't make that in Germany. And the first time I realized when we went to the film markets, and especially in France, when young French filmmakers are coming and asking me for a list for for short film production companies, and I said, oh, so maybe they have that in France. So we do not have, and it's a pity. And yeah, there are some companies dealing a lot with short films, but mostly with TV series, and they have so some of the series can you have the single part you can show at the festival too. But yeah, we do not have that. But, so and that's a problem because a lot of producers cannot develop their own company or their skills, whatever, because yeah, it's not possible.
Seems different in Sweden, right?
I mean, now it maybe sounds better than it is. It's not that we can totally all live off making short films, but there are the possibilities of doing it, and people want to do it. Yeah.
I would say that the fact that there are so many different sources for you to get funding, so you can build quite a strong, you can build up quite a strong amount to make a short film, because you have both the Swedish Filminstitute. You can apply from one of the regions, and you also have Swedish television, plus you have artistic grant money, and so you could build a financial structure from 3, 4, or 5 different funders to get, I would say, like a normal budget, including the production companies' own investments in terms of time and money, is usually a bit over 100,000 euros. That would be like an average budget, but we do see short films that has much higher, especially when it comes to animation, or if it's got a lot of like VFX and things like that. So I think that is what contributes to the fact that it is quite a good environment for short filmmakers in Sweden in particular.
I'm curious because now you said that in Germany there's actually a max on what you can give to a short film. Is that the same in Switzerland?
No, it's maximum from the national level, 50% of the budget.
Okay.
So
with a big budget, more money, yeah.
And how is it about with the distribution of short films? Is it also funded or helped, supported?
Yes, but Swiss Film has a short film section. Swiss Film is the national agency for distribution of Swiss films abroad, and they have a short film department. Yes, I don't know the exact amounts, but they are very active on festivals.
Well, one thing of your study, Jenny, is also that with the changings in other players coming into the market since a few years now, of course, and we know which ones, maybe the public funding should try to focus on priority or put priorities right or differently. How do you think it could affect or should affect the short film then?
I just think that, I mean, if you look at the history of public film funding, that sort of actually grew after the Second World War and the American sort of domination, like you could see the American films coming into Europe, and a lot of countries, especially France and Germany, were sort of worried that what will this do to our film culture. So that's sort of how national and regional funding of film came to be. I mean, it was a way to preserve, make sure that our language, our cultures, history from our territories were being told in a cinematic way. And during these 60 years, I mean, there's been a lot of change in how things are being produced. So I think a lot of public film agencies and funders still, they haven't really thought about what their purpose is, because the purpose is rooted so far back. But then other things have changed, and the industry has changed, and there's other types of players, and we watch things in a different way. And we have sort of changed our policies, but we haven't really sort of looked back to see like, okay, but are we going in the right direction? Is this what we should put our money into? And so the report basically is presenting like the industry and the public film agencies with this question, like, what is your purpose? Because when we do all these interviews, we can see that you say one thing, but you do another thing. And what the effects of that discussion that we think should be had in Europe of what the purpose is, I was really happy to see that, even though the reports doesn't really focus a lot on short film, and it's a curse and a blessing to be doing something that nobody really is, looking at. Me being in an organization that primarily does feature film, doing short film, in some ways I sort of feel like I can do what I want because they're busy thinking about other things. So in one way we are sort of left alone to do what we want to do, but in the long run we need to keep an eye on if public film funding and funding for short film there will be an oversight. We need to be a part of sort of in the conversation saying like, okay, but this is the reason why we think short film funding is important, or why short film is important.
Can I add something? Yeah, of course.
When you talking about that history thing, that's really funny. I think one of the problems in Germany is that there is a mix-up between that cultural idea or funding arts, but actually the most money of film funding is going to developing the economic structure, not just the film industry, even tourism stuff like that. But they say we are giving I don't know how many millions to film or to art, but it's not going into art, it's going into the infrastructure of whatever. And yeah, I would say that's a problem. And the big amounts are mostly going to American co-production. That's really strange in Germany. So that's called stupid German money. So you just need some point to connect, and then you a lot of all the Väst Analysis and whatever, they have money from Germany, and the regional funders can say, oh, we are co-producer of that very successful film, but it doesn't help the German film industry, and it doesn't develop talent, because all the heads of the departments, whatever, they are just from the States or sometimes from the UK, but they do not develop any talents or. Yeah.
So that money doesn't have to be spent in Germany for the big blockbusters.
Yeah, they are coming. So there are a lot of they are shooting or sometimes post-production, whatever. But that's sometimes it's weird. And then you are talking about maybe the short film can get 100,000 more. So the amount of on the state level, all that 500,000. Together per year for short film is less than they put in one feature-length films. So that's the relation is not nice.
Well, this is also something you state in your report exactly when it comes to how to make the difference between a very genuine artistic valuable work than to a more market-oriented, let's say, if not mainstream, but work. How does is it related to short film in any way? This distinction, do we need to do it also, or how?
The distinction is sort of made by the respondents in the sense that they think that public film funders are funding just a particular type of short film and a particular type of filmmakers, and those are sort of the very artistic auteur types of filmmakers. And I think yes, that is something that we can talk about and consider. And I do think that a lot of film funding agencies are sort of looking at broadening and finding other types of creators, but it is really a challenge, and nobody's really come up with a good solution, or there's not a lot of best practices. But I do want to point out that short films are usually made by people who are quite new in making films. And when you're quite new and you have a lot of big ideas, you tend to be a bit pretentious. And you tend to be very focused on like, oh, I want to tell this story, it's so important. You're very like me focused, especially in the beginning of your career. And what happens along the way is that you start noticing films that other people are making and thinking, okay, well, that film has already been made. And you start to think about, but what is it that I want to tell to you? Who is my audience? And what could, of all these films being made and sent out to festivals and being screened, like what is it that I want to bring? So I think it's something to do with maturity as well. So yes, we do maybe fund more an artistic type of short film, but that also tends to be the type of films that people who want to make short film want to make. So that comes the argument like, well, maybe we need to fund things that are not just short film if we want to broaden the type of creators we work with. So that will be a discussion for the future.
We'll open up to the audience right in a moment. But I wanted to ask you first. In Switzerland, there's also like a similar study to in the making. Actually, we'll see what we get out of it. But first, maybe also about this distinction between. Do you have an opinion on this distinction between what kind of short films we can or should also fund more?
We are clearly a cultural fund, so our criteria are quality and originality. That's the first criteria in our law. So it's really talent funding and yes, giving the chance to the young people to make their first work. Then we have all the genres, and in fiction we also support projects that have the intention to show the capacity of the filmmaker to direct a fiction film. So the story is maybe not really artistic, but if the precedent works of the filmmaker have shown some craft, we support also that. Yeah.
Would you like to add something? Otherwise, we could open to the audience. Yeah. It's a very short question. It's important for the audience. You still wait for the mic.
It's very a general question. I think it's important for the audience to explain distinguish the duration of a short film, because the definition of a short film in countries in the north and in Switzerland is different. How long do you say a short film is eligible for you?
I think we had also this discussion yesterday. I mean, technically,
Exactly.
a short film is up to 60 minutes, but it's very hard to, especially in fiction, to get the financing needed for 60 minutes. And we as a fund say that if you want to make a short film longer than 15 minutes, you really need to make a case for it, because it's going to be harder to fund and it will be harder to distribute.
For us, at a national level, it's the same. Technically, back in the days, it was actually 72 minutes, because as of 73, it's a feature. I don't know. Now it's 60 minutes, but I would say our commissioners I can't remember they've funded anything that was much more than 30, and will, just as the regional film funds, talk to them about, because if you want funds from us, you also have to have a distribution plan. And with a 35-minute short, where do you want to show it? Maybe our public broadcaster will, but in festivals, as you all know, it's maybe harder if it's a long short.
Yeah, and festivals might say that we accept films up to 60 minutes or to 40 minutes, but if you look what they actually select, you get a sense of what they're actually looking for.
So in Germany, on the nationwide level, short films are up to 30 by the funding. So festivals are completely different, except most 30, but for example, Oberhausen accept in the German competition for 40 minutes. And we have a so-called film funding law. It's not on the money, the public money. It's money from the industry. And there, the definition of short film is up to 30 now, but the feature-length film starts at 79, and the films in between do not exist in that law.
Yes, well, in Switzerland it's up to 60, it's a short film, so when I talk about short documentaries, we have also 52 minutes TV documentaries that are eligible if they have a cultural value.
But I have to say there are a lot of films existing in that middle length level, but you cannot, mostly cannot get public funding. Some regional funders maybe will do that, but yeah, they exist and some are really successful. For example, I think from Nicolas Schmidt, he is from Hamburg, and I think one of his film was 40 minutes was running all over the world and the festivals. So, but yeah, it's not easy to finance that.
I think again that's a little bit of the discussion that the report Jenny, that thing was like, what should we fund? Because there are films that will run the festivals, and we also support films that might be 40 minutes. If like Jenny says, if there is a reason why it should be, but of course we need to think about, will this film be seen by anybody? Why do we put the money into funding a film? It could be to develop a voice or something else, but there has to be a reason why we put a lot of money into a film.
As much as I know, there aren't so many festival even that they consider. I guess in Germany there is one for young filmmakers or new talents, let's say. In Saarbrücken they have exactly a section for middle length, but otherwise.
Yeah, but there are festivals they accepted the middle length films, but of course it's not. If you have a middle length film, and the festival has to decide if they take it in, because they have to kick out more shorter ones for that. So a middle-length film really has to be brilliant to accept it. So, yeah.
Other questions from, yeah, okay, please.
Hi, my name is Desmond Hudson. I am a writer-director, and as a coming-up artist, I am very reliant on public funding. And what I've seen recently, or has become quite a subject recently, is gender and diversity maps. And I was wondering, how has this affected the decision making towards funding, and how relevant is this nowadays?
What was the word you said after gender and diversity?
Maps, or just
Checklist.
criteria that you have to say, the crew, the directors, the producers.
So in Switzerland we have this, but it's only for statistics. So the only thing we have in our law is that we should fund equally films by women directors and men directors. This is the only law prescription. And diversity is Zürich who has the map. You can ask them. But on the national level we have the gender map, but it's now only for statistical reasons. Gender of the crew and of the content, the figures. Yeah.
I love that Jenny and I are just looking at each other. Welcome to Sweden. Oh yes, we've been looking at it for many years. We had a CEO at the Filminstitute who invented the 50-50 by 2020. We need to look at, and again, for some reason at that time, only men and women.
It's also because you can't actually map other types of, like, you can't ask, like, are you black? Are you? It's actually against the law in Sweden to sort of measure ethnicity. So that's why we're so focused on gender.
And sexuality, yeah, exactly. So we've done that a lot, and we can only say that in the short film world, it's never a problem. Whereas with the features, where the big money is, sure, we still have inequality there. But with the short films, often when we talk to the commissioners, and also when we select films for distribution, we look at the films first, and then afterwards, like you say, okay, how was it? Are we okay balanced? But yes, in short films, we actually are.
If just a comment to that is, I mean, there has been a discussion in Sweden about the consequences of if you look too hard at keeping it equal, especially between gender. What happened with artistic freedom when you ask questions like, what is the diversity? How does diversity look in your team, and in terms of themes of your film? And have you thought about, you know, all these questions? When you ask creators those questions when they apply, that could also create an idea that, oh, I need to change how I do things and what kind of stories I tell in order to get funding. And that has been a big discussion in Sweden, and I do think that is actually, I think we could, you know.
Last year we took it out of that whole gender equality. We took it out because of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you can be slightly more intelligent approaching these questions than like asking you, how diverse is your cast, or how is diversity shown in your story. But I just think it's something to be mindful. It's something to be mindful of. I don't think we don't ever. You can ask for your, you know, say what you think, but I mean, I'd never made a decision on a project based that, oh, this is the gender of the filmmaker, or this is this topic. But we are all looking for a broad slate. We are looking for, like, we can't fund the exact type of stories because nobody would be interested in watching like 5 films about the Second World War in 1 year, perhaps. But so it's more to do that we want to have a diverse slate. So that could be the reason why we choose one story over another. But then there's lots of other factors that play in.
But I think what has changed in the last 10 years is that maybe 10 years ago you might have got funding as a white majority Swede to make a Sami film for our indigenous people in the north of Sweden or in Finland and Russia. That would not fly any longer if you're not of Sami descent. Or, I mean, it's about who tells whose stories. So you would look at, why are you telling this story?
I would maybe fund that film, but that's another discussion.
Let's have that afterwards.
So I'm not I was never a member of that selection or juries for the funding, but when we select the films we would like to promote, we take care that we have different views on the or perspective in the selection process. And so but at the end, so we do not say we have to have half woman or man or whatever, but it works in a way, because when after the selection I always count, and sometimes we have half of the directors with foreign roots, so they were born outside of Germany, and man and woman, it's nearly equal. Some years, some more man and woman, and when the films are applied, the directors can mark if they are male, female, or different. They do not have, but they can. And then, yeah, you see, it's more diverse if the selection person are sensitive in that topic. I think it's a long process, but it will work. And one point helped us. We could make that something in that film funding law changed, because formerly it was needed that the dialogue is in German, or at least there is a German dubbing. So it's senseless in short films, but when we changed that it just has to have German subtitles, it finally, so many different languages are in German short films. It's but you can see it's sometimes it's a small step, and then you have a huge change.
You had a question, right? Oh.
Hi, my name is Marcus, and I have a question mainly to Patrizia. In Switzerland, if you're a new writer and you want to also produce your own short film, how can you even get at the national level to the funding part if you're not associated with a production company? Because as far as I know, that is like the biggest hurdle, right? That you cannot come as a private person, say you want to direct and produce.
The funding is for professional filmmaking, so we can only, by law, finance film produced by a professional company. So what I can tell you is you have to find a production company to support you. You can go to pitches, or here you can meet a lot of producers. There is no other way with the national level and the regional level neither.
I was just curious because in Sweden we go past that rule because it's the same. We fund professional films, but you as a person, if I don't know if it's the same in Switzerland, can have your own company. Yeah. So if you have your own company, then you can. So I don't know if it would he be.
You have to make your own company. Yeah.
What counts as company if you're registered in the Chamber of Commerce? That's all.
And the purpose of your production company is to produce films. The purpose must be.
There you go. You're in.
There were. Oh yeah, please.
It is 11 o'clock.
Can we take one more?
One?
There were two.
We have 2 questions, so maybe we could do.
Are there short ones? Can you keep it short?
We start.
Can you make the answers short?
Short questions.
I'll make it very short. You guys are talking a lot about developing talent, and a lot of times it's developing new talent, developing young talent, right? And so there are people who are new talent or who are starting very later in life. I may be talking about myself. And so I'm wondering a lot, like times that I've applied for things, I know that I know that I found out after the fact that, you know, maybe it's all young people and it's awkward to have someone who's older in the group or something. And so I do find that, I mean, do you find that you broaden new talent specifically, or you pay attention to the fact that it's not just young talent?
The first thing I did when I started my job was to remove young in front of talent everywhere, because as you say, if you, especially if a woman, if you're a person of color, or you know, you come from working class, you tend to discover later on that this is something I can do and I want to and I dare to do it. So
for us, we love it as well. It's a bit of the diversity, and just like Jenny said, it's different. You tell different kind of stories than a 20-year-old. So we definitely.
Yes, we don't have young in our law.
So maybe for the other questions, do you want to talk in? Can we take another question? Or?
One question, yes, and then we have to finish.
Okay.
I didn't quite understand, because you were briefly talking about it, if it is possible to do co-productions, for example, with Switzerland and Sweden.
Yeah, very shortly. Yes. To do co-productions in Sweden, you have to apply through the Swedish producer, but we do both major and minor co-productions.
Yes,
not a lot of money, but yeah.
You can do co-productions with the countries that have a treaty with Switzerland for short films too, with the Swiss producer.
In Germany, it's possible, but it's not so easy. And of course, you need a German co-production company. And I think it's easier with a regional film funding than with a state fund.
Yes, you could. It's the same.
No, better, because we also have the treaty with different countries. You can co-produce with whoever you want.
Yeah, we can co-produce with whoever we want. So we're doing a co-production with a filmmaker in Kosovo, for example. And we have the pleasure to do that, which the Filminstitute can't.
Well, then I guess our time's up. Thanks everyone in the audience. Thanks to you all. Yeah, well, enjoy your day.
Thank you, everyone on stage. Thank you for this discussion. And I just wanted to tell you that the study, Filmivest study, is also on our website. You can find it, you can read it if you're interested. But it's free, and also the first part you will find in the net if you want to take your time and study the whole picture a little longer.
And I want to say that some of the sub-reports are actually focused on different types of countries. So it's one for France, it's one for Germany. It is not a specific one for Switzerland, but you can.
It will come probably. we had it last year actually from ProShort, kind of a study like that. Thank you very much. We have a 15 minutes break now, and then we have the next keynote.